I was born in Japan, in Kyoto City. And Kyoto had a lot of antiques and then very famous architecture, garden. Everything is essentially there because our city is our city was the capital for 1,000 years, and that moved to Tokyo. So, so I grew up that kind of atmosphere. And then Nara was before Kyoto. Nara was the capital before Kyoto. And we often went to Nara for a lot of festivals and things. And Kyoto has 1,000 festivals, 1,000 temples, and 1,000 festivals almost every day. You know, it depends on the area. But because of that, I didn't know how important Kyoto City was. I was just living there and then grew up there, and then I had to be educated had to learn tea ceremony and flower arrangement when I was very small. And then also the Japanese traditional instrument, shamisen, and then Japanese dancing. But that was everyday life. And then when you walk through the street, you hear the people playing shamisen there and then singing there. And then that's normal life. So I didn't think that was very special. And then I actually, also I'm not like Jesse. He was sort of conditioned to be architect, and I wasn't. So for many years, my grandfather was a businessman and had a lot of real estate. My father was physicist. My mother was artist. So I grew up in a very mixed family life. So because of my grandfather, my father didn't make money because he's just a physicist professor in university. That time, they didn't get paid well. So we are supported by my grandparents. So therefore, I thought I had to be a business lady growing up, and I was thinking that I should be pharmacist. In Japan, it's not the easy thing to do, and I was studying very hard to go to university to be a pharmacist. And then, almost a few months before I applied to school, something came to me, and I said, no, I don't want to be pharmacist. I want to study art. That's how I am. I discovered myself, so I went to special school after school to learn how to do sketches and how to draw figure drawings, and then making model, but also color coordinations and things like that. So I decided to, but at that point it was sort of too late to really train myself to be artist. And I was very interested in that point to be interior designer. But the interior design was really lots of competition to go to that kind of school. So I found the other department which cover everything, which is urban environmental design and urban planning. So I applied that department and I went there. But the thing is this, I came from a girls' high school, it's all girls. And I went to college without thinking about that kind of thing, classmates and things. So I entered the university first day. I went to my class and I discovered I was only woman. Only one woman. Essentially, I was a girl. And then other 75 students, they're all men. And some of them are quite old because to go into college, they may drop, they may not pass first round, so they go second round, and they go third round, and they get into the university. So I was fresh out of high school from girls' school, and I went to this boys' school. And that was such a scary moment for me. I couldn't go into the class. I had to hide in the I-beam. So I put myself in the I-beam, and I had to think, should I go into the class or I should just go home? So I went home. So from next day, I asked my high school friends to come with me to my school, because she was the one who wanted to be an artist, and her father was architect, and her father said that you can't go to mediocre art school, you had to go to the best art school. So she couldn't apply my school. My school was quite new school. So she came every day with me, and she dropped out other school. That's how I survived in college. And after I graduated, I began to gradually began to discover architecture. And then while I was in the school, I thought architecture students, they study bridges and highways. That's I really like now, but at that point I said, I don't want to study bridges and highways. But I managed to finish the school, and then after I graduated, I started doing TA for my college, and then gradually I tried to apply job in landscape architects, and I discovered the landscape architect, they don't take women because they had to carry heavy bushes, and you had to carry the soil, and they don't really hire women. So I had to give up that idea, and then my other architects professor recommended to come to Tokyo from Kyoto, and then I went there, but I couldn't get the job in the architecture office. So he recommended one guy who does a product design. But that was, I really didn't like doing that, but I learned how to detail everything, how to make furniture, but also we had a lot of Latin furniture design, so I learned how to make a lot of curves, because Latin furniture is mainly made with curves. So I learned how to project the geometry of curve into flat drawing, so that the manufacturer people, craftsmen, can make real furniture. So I spent 2 years in that office. But in a weekend, I go to my teacher's architectural office, and then I did serving teas and cleaning office, but at the same time I learned something, architectural things. And then more and more I thought about myself, and then I really wanted to study architecture, but there's no way I can go back to school, because in Japan there is no system as a transfer student. So if I go to architecture, I had to start from zero. So I didn't want to do that, and then somehow my mother pushed me to go to foreign country, because she grew up in World War II, and then she couldn't do anything because of the man is all killed, and she was a woman. So she didn't have a freedom to go to a foreign country, because US is enemy of Japan. So my mother pushed me to go to a foreign country. So I left. She pushed me to go. So I did the backpacking to go around entire Europe. I went everywhere in Europe, and I did twice. But same time, I discovered I came from very important city, because people ask me lots of questions about that temples and that architecture, and that is so norm. So I didn't think about these architecture or gardens, things like that. Is so important for me because it's in me already. But because of that, I began to study Kyoto city, especially gardens and lots of temples. And I did a lot of tour, guide for my classmates from college and things like that. And then when I came to, after I went through Europe and also the Morocco and these areas, I finally said, well, I should go to US, because I study landscape architecture, urban design. Means US is that point is really the important place to go. Like Berkeley, they had Lawrence Halprin, these people. So I landed in 14th Street in New York, and I couldn't believe how filthy that place was. It was like a nightmare. And I went to visit this apartment building, and a lot of hippie architects are all living in there. So I took a room there, and then I was very frustrated going around the world because I didn't speak English well. So I decided, okay, this is the time. This city is really disgusting, but this is the time I can study English. So I went to English school, and I did from beginner to the advanced, and then I didn't have any school to go to, so I somehow had to have something to get the visa, continuing the student visa. So one day I went to some party, somebody hosted, and then this guy asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to study architecture, but there's nowhere I can go. And then he said, this is the country you can transfer easily. And then I was living in the East Village, and I often walk around in front of Cooper Union, but I didn't know anything about Cooper, but I didn't think that was an architecture school. But this person said, oh, why don't you go to Cooper Union? And I said, whoa, that sounds really good, Union. The name of Union really, I thought that's like a hobby school because it's a union. So I prepared my portfolio. I went back to Japan and prepared my portfolio, and I applied. And then somehow they interviewed me. Rick Scofidio interviewed me. Cooper Union, they don't interview anybody who come into school. You just submit portfolio, and they choose from portfolio. But Rick interviewed me thinking my portfolio had architecture, landscape, and lots of furniture design. So I look like I'm quite accomplished. And then Rick asked, which year I like to go? And he said, I'm thinking you should go fourth year. And I said, no, I don't want to go to fourth year. I will go to second year. Because first is too easy for me. So I decided to go to second year because I know I really had to learn architecture well. So I went to second year. And then I really, Cooper Union, I didn't know Cooper Union is such a hard school to get into, but once you get into, it's very hard to complete or even each, they don't, somehow, it was very difficult for me to learn how to make a model. I didn't know how to make a model that well. I did a real thing with my hand in Japan. I made a real model, one-to-one model for furniture and things, but I didn't know how to make architectural model. So I essentially had to learn from zero. But also, we had a professor like John Haydock. He really pushed students to do their own work, not copying anything. So you just had to stick to yourself, and you just had to come up some idea which is mine, which is very difficult thing to do in that young age. So the Cooper was a really difficult school to go through for me. And then when I got in there, that is the only year they took foreigner directly coming from the other country. I was the first one. So I was really scared also because I didn't speak English well. My friend said I was just scrubbing the wall like that. And I didn't. And then luckily I bumped into Shigeru Ban. And then he was in the same year, he transferred from SciArc to Cooper. So we became good friends. And Shigeru taught me how to make a model. And then that was sort of like, it's not the Cooper style, Shigeru's model. It's more styrofoam, using styrofoam make a model. And then when I met Jesse, he didn't teach me anything, but I just looked how he makes model. I just studied it, just keep looking and looking how he moves, how he put things together. But it's very slow motion, but I learned just looking at how Jesse makes model. So that's how I learned how to make model. And then that was a really satisfying experience. I was able to go through Cooper Union, and then luckily I graduated. Lots of people, half of my classmates were gone that time because they just dropped out or transferred to other schools. So I may enter my class, probably 20 students, and at the end up being 10 students. And especially I had the other education, so I can skip the class to from second year to third and fourth year. So I don't need to do the third year and fourth year for 2 years. I did two third year and fourth year in 1 year. Means, Cooper Union require heavy-duty structure class, and I had to take structure 3 and 4 same time. And the structure is not my strength, so I had to hire tutor. The classmate was my tutor, and I couldn't afford to pay her, so I joined with my other classmate, so we pay half and half. But that was a really difficult classes to go through. The design school is design issue is other things, but the structure is a very difficult thing. But because of my tutor, I was able to go through structure class too. So that was good. And I finally finished the school that way. But because of Haydock, he said you had to do your own thing. And then I had to do my own thing. Means it's already that I was conditioned not to work for other people. So and then right after Jessica pre Rome, so I went to Rome together. And then after doing our own work, we did the competition, the Aldo Rossi. Aldo Rossi was the person who addressed the subject. And so we worked the whole year, entire year for that project. We didn't really do that much of sightseeing or anything. But that was a really good thing. It gave us some attitude to work our own ideas. So when I came back to US, I worked a little bit of Jesse's mother, but I really couldn't keep working for her because of this idea of develop my own work. So we start doing our own work. So it's financially, it's very difficult, but I was able to do. But on the side things, I got lots of landscape design project, building project. I was lucky because I had a landscape degree. And then Jesse's mother, Debbie, was building that time a lot, and her client gave me to design a landscape. So that's how we started our own practice. And then Jesse did a landscape object, and I did a lot of landscape. But also, I developed the idea of my own way of doing landscape, because I thought that the landscape is very interesting, because it's a much bigger scale, and it involves infrastructure, and also you can carve the land. You know, it's not just bush and trees. Essentially, you are sculpting land. That really I enjoy a lot, and that gave me some base of my development of my architectural design. So when you look at our design, always has this infrastructure, road and things are going through the buildings. I really enjoy that part. That's difficult to say, but John Haydock was my teacher, and Raymond Abraham also was teacher, but I don't know, probably I had the most influence from John Haydock. I would say so. He was a professor, but also same time he was my mentor. But also people like Brody, he's a practicing architecture but teaching at Cooper, and he was also, I would say, he was mentor of mine. Yeah, he taught us the attitude, how you approach the design work. Because he always get really mad if student copy his work. Sometimes he fired a student from school, because of that. So, and he wasn't, sometimes he was very mean. And then if I do some project which is not really, I thought it's my ideas, but he thinks it's not mine, then he thinks, I had to do my own work. So I had to go back to, somehow Japan is already in me, right? So I couldn't really say what's mine, because the Japanese architecture is mine, but it's not really mine. So I had to really develop my own work. But it's not only in a school, but also keep working my own work. And then people say, what is Japanese architecture? What is Japanese culture? And I can't answer that because I'm that one and I don't know how to answer. Right. Actually, we had the bottom doing practice, not working for other people, but the JC was going to start teaching. At that time, I had a child, so I didn't teach for quite many years. And then, but once you have a child, you had to make more money because I couldn't just give up my practice and be just mother. So the Jessie and Jessie's mother is pushed me to keep working, so I had to hire a babysitter. And that cost entire my salary and our salary. So I had to start teaching because of that. And then I think my first teaching job is at Columbia. And once I started teaching, I was very shy and I'm very scared of talking to anybody, but I think I started enjoying teaching. And I still teach, since then. I still teach. I'm, I'm teaching at Washington University at St. Louis. I'm a professor in practice there. And then I teach Pratt now. So I alternate teaching. Our teaching, the subject is always big scale. For a long time, we did the Tokyo Bay project before the Olympics. So we did a lot of Olympics project, but we used the entire site of Tokyo Bay, one big site where that stadium was made for this Olympics. So of course, therefore, that we had to really bring in lots of different scale of program in there, and I'm really good at doing that. Because of that, I enjoy teaching how to develop infrastructure, how to develop the architecture, and also I love also detailing because I did the furniture design in the past. So yeah, so mainly it's always a big scale of project. Yeah, hardest thing is to learn is what I like. Because we had to go through, even like one project, you had to go through lots of ideas, but at that point you don't know what I really want. And then discovering what I really like and I really stick to the idea is a long process, So that's the big discovery. Every time we do the project, I discover something. So that it's hardest, but it's the most enjoyable moment.